What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets'd podcast. Ryne Stanek back. Stanek at the Disco is back. Pete Alonso, more rumors. It's crazy. Every day we get new stuff about Pete Alonso, and we also have some possible trade rumors for the New York Mets if Pete Alonso does not come back. So we will talk about all those and everything else that we have to talk about in the Mets world, as we always do. Remember to subscribe to the Mets'd podcast YouTube channel if you have not yet done so. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. And if you're listening to us, said that already, follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. James, we got new curtains behind you, equally as awful as the last episode. Tell the folks at home where you're at, how you doing.
These curtains are so ugly. I think they're almost uglier than the last one. They're very similar, still with like a pinkish reddish hue, but they're more in my face, so I think I noticed them more. I'm in the village of Pai right now in northern Thailand, up in the mountains. It's pretty nice up here. Gonna hang out here next few days, get some peace and serenity after being by the beach for the last week and a half. But
that's not peace and serenity, the beach.
But the beach is peace and serenity, but the beach in Thailand is so much more touristy, so much more action. It's just a lot more like hip hop and happenings. Like where I was when I did the last podcast on the island, that was serenity. But the other two beach towns I was in were chaotic. So now this is like, okay, time for some peace. Do a hike, hang out in a river, relax a little bit. But doesn't matter right now. Ryne Stanek's back. This is my guy. I love this dude. I've been begging for him to be in the Mets for years. Was so happy when David Stearns was out and traded for him last year during the summer. Was begging everybody to hang on with me during those first few bad outings, because a guy like Stanek is always someone that's going to have some big peaks and valleys with his effectiveness, just because it's a high octane, high intensity outing. It's fastballs, it's sliders, it's splitters. You don't know exactly where the pitches are going. Guys are going to get on base. There's going to be some home run issues, but when the stuff is on, and you guys saw the stuff beyond towards the end of September and through the playoffs, when you became literally in the playoffs the Mets' second most trusted reliever as we got through the Brewers and the Braves series, the Phillies series. Like, he has that upside. I think that's the appeal of a guy like Ryne Stanek, who's battle tested, has been through tons of playoff series before. You saw him have the piece, even though he's a psychotic human being. He looks like a roadie from Metallica when he's on the mound. But the fastball, the slider, the splitter, you can't really beat that repertoire in the market right now. The stuff is out of control, even with the high walk rate. For a one-year deal, like, you literally can't do better than this point in the offseason. I'm really happy they just did it.
Yeah, and Mets fans have been clamoring for bullpen help. Ryne Stanek definitely is going to be that. I think the Mets also said that one of the reasons why they targeted him last year was that they saw that there was a change that they could make that would allow him to throw more strikes, and he finally started to do that in the playoffs. So I'm really interested to see what a full spring training with the Mets can do to Ryne Stanek's game, because the K-rate stuff is always ridiculous. The walks have always kind of been the problem with him, if there was anything, but he was so good in the postseason. Really happy to have this psychopath back in our bullpen to go along with Edwin Diaz and AJ Minter and Daniel Nunez and Reed Garrett, putting together a really fun little David Stearns bullpen.
I will say, if the season went on, just going by the month from month on Baseball Savant for Ryne Stanek, he basically threw the same amount of pitches in the strike zone with the Mets as he did early in the season. But by the end of the season, the chase rate on most of his pitches was really, really elevated, especially on the splitter and the fastball. So maybe that's something there with the deception of those pitches that the Mets helped unlock. But if you now take it, like, zoom out for a second, look at this Mets bullpen, something I think a few weeks ago that was a huge fear for a lot of Mets fans, people who follow this team, care about this team. It's come together really nicely. I'm not going to say it's hard to find a hole, but the fact that now you have Edwin, Minter, Stanek, Garrett, Daniel, Budo as like a 5-man right there towards the back end of the bullpen, that's really good. That you could argue right now inside this division, the NL East, who we're competing with directly, that might be the best bullpen cohort in the division right now, which is kind of crazy to say. It's a long way we've come in the last 6 weeks, 2 months, but we've done a really good job. David Stearns done an amazing job in building a really nice, solid core back there.
I mean, I'm also going to still throw in the name, too, of course, where you have Tyler McGill, who could be a bullpen arm at some point, maybe in this roster. You have Clay Holmes, who, if it doesn't work out on the starting side, is going to be a fantastic reliever for this team. Really, really deep with the arms in the bullpen, something that you haven't been able to say with the Mets roster almost any time in our lifetime. So it's really refreshing and nice to see that we are, like you said, 5 arms legitimately deep right now of guys that you can trust to get some big outs.
Can we do like a little bit of minutia bullpen talk real quick?
Give it to the people. You've been away for a bit. Give it to the people.
So with Stanek coming in now, though, this means that the only optionable relievers who were projected to be in the Mets opening day bullpen before Stanek were Reed Garrett and Daniel Nunez. So now with Stanek coming in, that will push either one of them, which I think is unlikely, to the minor league to start the season, which is, Dan, they have the options, but they're 2 of the best 5 relievers in this pen. Jose Budo's out of options. Danny Young doesn't have options. Either of them would have to pass through waivers, Same with Griffin Canning if they want to be on this team. Same with Sean Reed-Foley if he's going to make this roster. So now the Mets are in a situation where, oddly enough, you guys are going to kill me for saying this, there's a slight surplus of bullpen arms right now. So I do wonder something that we talked about in the out of the park simulation. I wonder if someone like Jose Budo's name does come up in trade talks now, either him or McGill, because we're going to talk about a little bit later in the episode that there is a little bit of trade buzz right now around the Mets and some other players that could help them in the corners and starting rotation. Now it seems like it actually does make sense for them to alleviate some of this roster crunch in the bullpen.
Yeah, I think McGill probably won't be the guy just because he has the option. Crazy enough, it will be Budo, and it sounds weird, but as spring training goes on and as injuries happen, not only to the Mets, but to other teams as well, a guy like Jose Budo just becomes a lot more valuable, where maybe he is someone that you can move for a piece that's going to be not a huge move by any means, but something that could help this roster with flexibility as well, because that is important. But also in the same regard, there are going to be injuries throughout the year. There are going to be injuries in spring training. While the roster may seem a little bit clunky right now in terms of optionable guys in the bullpen, I'm sure there's going to be ways to manipulate this roster, move guys up and down that will end up working out.
And it's still January. It's only going to be January. We can only say that for 2 more days. I guess one more day when you guys are listening to this, but still January. Still a lot. This roster is still not the final product. And as David Stearns always says, the final product in February is not going to anything look like what it's going to be in June, July, August, September. Ryne Stanek wasn't even on the team last year until July, and he was the second most trusted reliever by the time the playoffs came around. So long way to go, but it's really cool how much it seems like Stearns has insulated this Mets bullpen from the chaos that ensued, especially in the middle parts of last season when things looked bad for a little while.
100%. Now, let's switch focus here to what you guys all came for, the actual talk about Pete Alonso and some of the trades that the Mets are interested in. We know that Steve Cohen made comments at Amazing Day the past weekend about the negotiations being frustrating with Pete, that he doesn't like where they're going. And then we got news a couple days ago, now when you guys are listening to this, that Steve Cohen has just gone back into negotiations with Pete Alonso and the Boris camp, that they are seemingly trying to work towards a amicable decision here. And it seems like now more and more that the Mets and Pete maybe are going to go back on track to be, coming back in a reunion here with each other. But also that makes it weird then that we're hearing all these trade rumors about Ryan Mountcastle, about Spencer Torkelson, about some of these other guys that the Mets are interested in. I don't know. I think it's just such a bizarre place. It seems like both sides are realizing, again, that this is the only thing that makes sense for both of them.
But also on the flip side of that, to play devil's advocate, the way that the Mets and Steve Cohen have kind of positioned the pivot away from Pete Alonso from the first day this thing broke was bullpen. And now the Mets have been signing trusted, proven reliever arms in Minter and Ryne Stanek. That's, almost $20 million for 1 year?
Do
Sounds
we know
a lot
what
like
Stanek's getting paid yet?
We don't know yet. It just came out when we're recording this. It's 12:30 in Thailand, so I got to get to bed soon. But it's probably around, $8, $9, $10 million for 1 year? That seems like what he's about worth. That's similar to what AJ Minter got. That's 85% of the money you expected to pay Pete Alonso this year if you were to sign him anyway. Like that, it seems to me that if to do both of them, it wouldn't be shocking because, again, maybe it's just leveraged by the Mets being like, oh, here's our pivot. Watch us be $40 million lower than our payroll for the last 2 years. Oh, no, we're definitely not going to spend more than that right now. But, again, it's probably all just a power play. It always has been the whole time. But it's just still all of the details that come out are still just weird. Oh, the Mets are signing Ryne Stanek to a 1 year deal in the $4 to $5 million range. That's incredible.
Free. That's literally free.
And then Andy Martino to continue that tweet. There is potential Pete Alonso context to this. That's all he said. So
then the context being that Stanek took a pay cut so that they could have more money to pay to Pete. How funny would it be? Obviously, this can't be the case. But Ryne Stanek's like, instead of paying me 10, you take that extra 5, you give it to Pete for 1 year. That would be a real ball player move right there.
Every single guy in the Mets gives $1 million to Pete Alonso. But no, it's just the whole thing with Pete Alonso that keeps coming back out is that, the Mets are in, the Mets are out, the Mets are in, the Mets are out. We had this conversation 2 days ago with you guys. We talked about the validity of the Blue Jays rumors and how awkward and uncomfortable they seemed based on especially the final detail that the Blue Jays were unlikely to match or beat the Mets offer. Yeah. So it's like, so then the offer doesn't even exist. It's not even real. You care about who's in second place? What are you talking about?
We know the Blue Jays love finishing in second place, so that's a big thing for them.
Or third place or fourth place, probably this year, fifth place. I mean, we know we have some Blue Jays fans listening to this podcast now, and I got news for you guys. You got no fucking future. Your team stinks. Your farm stinks. You got nothing going for you guys. So I hope you get, if you guys really want Pete, good luck to you all. But it just seems again like there's no real future here. And then this comes on for Pete and the Blue Jays in general. So that being said,
just ricochet shots.
It also, all of this comes over and over and over again. The Mets are talking again. Oh, the Mets are interested in these trade guys. Like, it seems like such a concerted campaign by the media, left and right, smear by Boris, back with the Mets, back forth. Like, it's never ending. And it's hard to. I agree with Steve Cohen said that this is getting more exhausting than so, though, truthfully, because at least there was like a real golden ticket, like a rainbow, like with a pot of gold at the end of that. Where this is like, all right, just bring Pete back, I guess now at this point.
Yeah, Juan Soto, you're like, this is one of the top 5 players in baseball, undoubtedly. There's no argument there. Where with Pete, MLB Network just put out their top 10 first baseman. They had him at 8 right now, which I thought was a little bit insane. I thought that was a bit criminal to put him down at 8. But this is a guy who is not a top 5 player in the league. So to have this kind of negotiation and go this length and go this long is probably super frustrating for Steve Cohen, who is also very used to probably saying, I want this, I get it.
Hey, Valentine's Day is coming up, and we have the recommendation for you to check out right now. Don't wait. It's 1-800-Flowers.com. This year, we're partnering with 1-800-Flowers to make sure you're a Valentine's legend with an exclusive offer for the FT fam. It's double the roses for free. When you buy 1 dozen, they're going to double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. It's the perfect way to wow her without breaking the bank. 1-800-Flowers always delivers. Let them dominate this holiday. It's what they do best.
Think about everyone in your fam that deserves some love on Valentine's Day. I sent a bouquet to my daughter at college, and it lit up her day. I also added an awesome vase to the order for her, so she's got it all.
All roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak, cared for every step of the way, and shipped fresh to ensure lasting beauty. Don't wait. Think ahead this year. Make it easy and get that deal right now. When you order 1 dozen, they'll double the rose bouquet for free. That's the FT deals that we're always looking out for. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/FT. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/FT.
There was a really good article on Fangraphs this week by Ben Clemens, and it's about it really tore into what Steve Cohen might have meant, with no inside information at all, but just what he might have meant by the asymmetrical contract. And we talked to you guys a little bit in the last episode about the buyout that would incentivize the opt-out, and that's something that would be considered asymmetric, because when Steve Cohen is saying asymmetric, in the financial sense, it's saying, like, if something is good for one party, it's not good for the other. If the deal is symmetric, if the deal is good for you, it's also good for me. Asymmetric means if it's good for you, it's not good for me. And one of the examples that Ben uses in that piece is that, like the Carlos Rodon deal with the Giants a few years ago, 2-year deal with an opt-out after 1. He performs really well after 1 year. He opts out. That deal's asymmetric because it worked out really well for Rodon, and he got to leave the Giants, but the Giants didn't get to reap the rewards of signing a cheap Carlos Rodon for multiple years, so that was gone. One of the other examples he uses is also a great piece. Everyone should be reading everything that Fangraphs puts out because it's incredible. But the other thing he put out was the Ozzie Albies deal with the Braves. That was one of the most asymmetric deals in baseball because he gets paid so little money compared to how good of a player he is. And then even when it gets further and further, when he's well into his prime like he is right now, and he'll have team options for coming up in a few years, it's only for $7 million. Even if Ozzie Albies is literally a utility infielder. Adam Frazier just got $6.5 million in the open market. He has now an OPS above 700, one time in the last 6 years, Adam Frazier? So no matter what happens, the Braves can kind of keep him on for cheap. And Ozzie Albies, no matter how well he plays, he'll never be able to get market value for his talent, his skill. So Ben went through a couple scenarios of what contracts that he thinks could be these asymmetric things. Because a lot of these asymmetric contracts that are player-friendly are signed by Boris, of course. So that happened with Blake Snell, Matt Chapman. We saw Carlos Rodon, the one I just talked about. It's basically the fact that, and this is something we haven't really talked about, haven't really thought was possible, that maybe the Mets aren't giving Pete a 1-year opt-out. We've always kind of assumed because that makes the most sense. But from their perspective, it doesn't really make sense to give him a 1-year opt-out. They'd probably prefer a 2 or a 3-year opt-out. And that might be the big sticking point here because he wants to get back on the market. So maybe that's the last hurdle to climb. So maybe we are being a little bit too contrite about how much we think this has to do with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But also, I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to dive through and figure this out because it seems just like it's so nitty gritty into terms. It's not about like money and options and years. It's about tiny terms and tiny bonuses and incentives and opt-outs, the kind of things that us like regular people have never been involved in a baseball front office can never have any idea what's actually going on in these negotiations.
Yeah, and if there isn't a first-year opt-out, maybe the Mets, like you said, are pushing for a second or third. That's also, I mean, it does kind of have to do with Vlad Jr. That's like the Vlad insurance right there because realistically, if Pete is signed for 2 years with an opt-out after the second year, he's going to be a DH if the Mets were to bring in Vlad Jr. in 2026. So I think that's a little bit of Vlad Jr. insurance as well. But at the same time, we're hearing that Cohen was the one who went back to Pete Alonso here. We're seeing that both camps want to make something happen. And then we get rumors from Pat Ragazzo and other people in the baseball world about how the Mets are calling it about Ryan Mountcastle, which fucking told you, Steve. David Stearns listens to this podcast. It was all over Ryan Mountcastle months ago. You castrated me. You were upset about it.
That's not what I did. My only thing was that you can't give me a real trade proposal for Ryan Mountcastle. Not that he wouldn't be a good
Tyler
fit.
McGill,
I don't know
there
what
it
makes
is.
sense. I don't know if that makes sense either. But okay, continue. Keep going.
So we were linked to Ryan Mountcastle. We've been linked to Spencer Torkelson. It seems like the Mets are exploring every single possible option that could play first base, which is also interesting, too, because it seems like if the Mets are going to be that aggressive on these other first base options, it makes me think that they very much still want Vientos to play third base or be the third baseman going into opening day in a perfect world.
Or at least have the opportunity to. And it's probably because of, I don't know, it seems like Vientos... I don't know. I think about Vientos as a good athlete, and I think about watching him run all of last year, and I'm like, all right, he's not actually an athlete. But like, there is, I know there's a good athlete.
But he is a good athlete.
Vientos.
Yeah,
he is a good athlete, literally a good athlete. But he's not a very fast athlete. But a guy like Mountcastle is more of, he doesn't have a very similar profile to Pete Alonso at all. Mountcastle has huge power, but he tries. I think he's a little bit more. Is again this thing we hate about Pete Alonso. He's a little bit more concerned putting the ball in play. He doesn't walk very often at all. He swings and misses a bunch. He chases a bunch. He's pretty good hands at first base. He's definitely a good athlete. He's also older than I think people perceive him to be at 27. I don't think
that's the age I thought that's the age I would have thought people think he is.
Oh, I guess he has been around a while, but he has a lot of the physical tools. But he's never been able to put it together. And I think the last few years he kind of got talk about castrated. He got kind of castrated by the Great Wall of Baltimore over there, Mount Baltimore in left field.
Looking at it, he's like been robbed of like 6 or 7 home runs alone last year because of left field being 400 feet to left center. It's insane.
Yeah, but I also do wonder again, but it does make sense as a foil for Pete in this Mets lineup as a right-handed power hitter, and he probably would project a lot better now that Park went back. But like realistically, like he's probably like 15-20% better than league average. He's probably a 20 home run guy with a 260 average. That's pretty good. It's
like
not
the thing you'd get what Pete probably was without like the home run numbers, but you'd probably get the offensive value of like that 120 WRC plus from Ryan Mountcastle, which was Pete's worst year essentially.
Yes, and then we get back to the part about what a trade would actually look like for Ryan Mountcastle. And maybe McGill is maybe Budo is the guy that actually makes sense for Ryan Mountcastle.
Because Baltimore's pitching is pretty
weird.
Awful right now. Like they're rocking Dean Kramer, Charlie Morton, and Tomoyuki Sagano right now on their opening day roster with Grayson Rodriguez, who dealt with some injuries last year. Like they don't have a lot of pitching depth because of guys like Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells going down with major injuries last year. It's weird. Their rotation's in a weird spot. We know they're trying to win right now.
I'll say this. Ironically, this Orioles team does have a lot of pitching depth. They just don't have a lot of reliable pitching. Like you mentioned guys like Morton, Kramer, Sugano. Like those are all like decent back-end guys. Then you look at other like Albert Suarez, who got some time mixing in between the rotations of the bullpen last year. Jackson Baumeister, Cade Povich. There's another AAA guy I'm forgetting right now. Trevor Rogers, who they made a big trade for last year. Chase McDermott. Like they have legitimately like 9 guys who could either be anywhere from SP4 to SP7s.
It's their McGills. It's like all their McGills.
They have tons of McGills. They have tons of Budos, which is why I can't exactly figure out why Justin Armbruster. Like I can't really figure out where the package makes sense to give something back to them. Like they could also use another high leverage relief arm. I don't know. We don't really have one of those to trade. They want Dead Neil Nunez. Like that actually makes sense, but I don't know if that's something that we would do. They did sign Andrew Kittredge. Felix Bautista is due back. They're a weird trade partner because I don't know what they actually want back in a deal. Like that's one of the strangest parts about this for me.
Yeah, I guess it is a little bit difficult to figure out what they could be looking for, especially because they just have such a glut of young talent. I keep using gluttony. It's just glut. Yeah. But so many young hitters, and they're dying to bring these guys up. Like they are begging for a way to bring Kobe Mayo up onto this roster to play every single day. Heston Kjerstad was drafted second overall in 2022. He's played like a total of like 250 plate appearances. He had some injury stuff, but they can't find a way to get him into the lineup. They are probably going to push out Cedric Mullins at some point because Colton Cowser could take over in center. Like it's a bizarre roster where they have so many good players. Now they're just trying to figure out how to get them all on the team.
Kjerstad probably also profiles as a first baseman at this point. I don't know if that's crazy for me to say, just based on where their outfield is. So getting rid of Mountcastle for them helps. And Mountcastle still has 2 years of team control. It makes so much sense on paper, which is why I never like killed you for this take. But I was like, I just don't know what makes sense for them. Because this team also doesn't make very many trades at all. the only real trade they've made in the last few years, I mean, it was the Trevor Rogers trade. It was the Eflin last year, the deadline when they were trying to push some chips in. And last offseason, it was two close to Major League ready prospects for 1 year of Corbin Burns. And that literally did turn out to be 1 year of Corbin Burns. Like, this front office led by Mike Elias is just weird. Like, they draft, they develop, they scout so well, but they don't really do anything. They're kind of like that guy in your dynasty league. I'm this guy in some of my dynasty leagues where it's just like, I trust what I have in here. Like, I don't know. I
like my guys.
Nothing that you have out there for me is helping me get better right now. So I'm going to stick with my guys. But then with that, like, this team is refusing to spend money. They've got a new owner. They're strange. I think the trade package that I'm finding myself much more interested in is starting to make more sense.
And oddly, I think Carlson.
Yeah, they did yesterday.
I'm so confused. This
is what I'm saying. You're saying they want to find spots for all these guys, but I don't know how badly they do. Like, they keep bringing in veterans to kind of continue, not to actively block their young players, but to just, like, make sure they're insulated against anything going wrong.
Yeah, like Gary Sanchez, so that Samuel Basayo doesn't have to play catcher. It's like they're trying to find every possible way. But
this is what you do when you're a very cheap organization that's scared of risk. You don't call up these prospects unless they're mega, ultra Mondo superstars like Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holiday until you're 25, 26 years old, like Adley, Kerstead, Colton Cowser. So then you guarantee that when you call a guy up and you get him for 6 years, you get the prime. Like, you don't risk any key years to free agency. Like, you hold, like Jordan Westbrook, you hold these guys in the minor leagues until they're 100% ready, the best they can possibly be, and then you play them. So you use stopgaps like Ryan O'Hearn and Tyler O'Neill in the meantime until these guys are peak primed, ready to go. That's why when you guys see stats for the Norfolk Tides team, which used to be the Mets team, now it's the Orioles AAA team, wow, they're scoring like 14 runs, 18 runs, 17 runs. The whole lineup's 25 years old. They're murdering people. They're
better than the Marlins.
Like, they were all former college baseball standouts, and they're murdering AAA pitching. It's kind of ridiculous, but that's what they do. Like, Kobe Mayo might spend another half of the year in the minor league. That's why I keep coming back to a trade partner for the Mets in the San Diego Padres. And I know it's unlikely these teams line up for a trade just because I don't think they like each other very much, and they are in direct competition based on where the Padres roster is now. But the Padres are one of, I think it's 5 teams this offseason to not spend a cent in free agency. And it's the Padres, the Cardinals,
they
Twins.
Just spent money. They signed Elias Diaz.
Oh, Elias Diaz, what, $3.5 million? All right, take him off the list.
Dog shit catcher, yeah.
So, but until then, it was the Padres, the Cardinals, the Marlins, the Twins. And I don't remember if it was one more team. But of those 4 teams...
Brewers?
Was it the Brewers? I don't know if it was the Brewers. It could have been the Brewers.
I feel like
there was. I think there was a 5th team. I can't remember who it was.
I think it is the Brewers. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Whatever. I want to just get one more dig in. Of the 4 teams I mentioned that I know didn't spend money until the Padres signed Elias Diaz for 1 year, $3 million this week. 3 of those 4 teams made the playoffs in the last 2 years. Only one that hadn't was the Cardinals. Amazing. With a marquee organization. Marlins made the playoffs since then. But the Padres seem to be kind of circling a toilet bowl here, and like they have to do something if they want to sustain competition for the next few years.
They have
no money,
and they have the most top-heavy roster without a doubt in Major League Baseball, where you have like Fernando Tatis, Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado, and then like right now projected they're going to be playing like Tirso Ornelas, Eggy Rosario, Elias Diaz is going to be in this lineup. Their bench has guys like Mike Brasso, who I forgot existed. Shout out to him for hitting that home run off Aroldis Chapman during the COVID playoffs. Brandon Lockridge, Tyler Wade. I mean, like, this roster is so bizarre. Even on the pitching side, Joe Musgrove's out for the year. So you're going to see Randy Vasquez getting like 150 innings possibly in this rotation. They are in such a weird spot where their owners are the ownership family is fighting between the brother and the wife of the Peter Seidler, who passed away last year. The brother, I think, wants to sell the team. The wife, I think, wants to keep it. One of them wants to spend money. One of them doesn't. Michael King is a free agent at the end of the year. He would be a legit impact arm for this rotation. Me and you have talked off the podcast about how nasty and disgusting that Michael King is. He's a very unique pitcher, similar to how Jake Arrieta threw across his body and was able to win a Cy Young Award in Chicago. Michael King does a lot of similar things with maybe even better stuff. He is someone who seems like is available, and maybe this is the time for the Mets to kind of push forward those pieces, guys like Drew Gilbert, guys that are not really a part of the future plan exactly at this moment, for a guy like Michael King who could take this team to the next level.
Yeah, King, I think, is one of the most fascinating pitchers in baseball. I wrote about him in like a series of breakout pitchers I did for Roto World this offseason. He's kind of like the most audacious starting pitcher in baseball because his command is so audacious, just bold, like in your face. Like that's it. Like I'm trying to think of something that's audacious. Like someone walks up to you at the bar, just starts like spitting facts. That'd be audacious,
okay.
but like also a little bit intrusive. But but the way the King does audacious shit is that he has such good command that he can do such stupid things to batters, and they can't really do anything about him. As you guys see the shadows move behind me on YouTube.
I saw those too. I was like, what's happening?
King against left-handed batters last year. You know what his most thrown pitch was? First pitch, most thrown first pitch of an at-bat.
Left-handed batters?
Yeah, King's a righty.
Okay, is it going to be a sinker?
It's a backdoor sweeper.
Interesting.
Crazy. And his most thrown put-away pitch to the lefties was a front door sinker.
So he was doing...
He would do the front hip sinkers. Nick Pollock
doing
has
the
talked a lot about
Bartolo
that.
sinker almost.
Like he's throwing it at your hip and it's cutting back into the lower corner of the
Ew.
plate. And he would be so disgusting doing this stuff. He also had really struggled with his fastball early in the year last year as he fully moved from the bullpen to the rotation. He figured out the locations of those. And again, the sweeper's still amazing. The sinker's amazing. The front hip, it was so crazy. I read what I wrote about him on Roto World, but he's a special pitcher, truthfully, and not even just him as a one-year deal. Dylan Cease also is expiring at the end of the season.
Apparently, Cease, though, is someone that they want a
much more expensive
ton for, which is kind of funny because they're both really good. And you can make the argument that Michael King was better last year, which is interesting.
I was about to make the argument that Michael King is better right now. Maybe not even better, but just at least more reliable. Because Cease, and we saw this firsthand with the Mets, where weirdly we got to Cease a lot last year. And the whole thing with Cease is that if you can knock him off his rocker a little bit with his fastball, because Cease, even though he's almost 30 years old, he's still a two-pitch pitcher. He's never really kind of picked up the pitchability that pitchers get as they get older, and they try to figure it out. Because usually as you keep getting older, you'll lose some zip on the fastball and the slider that make you so good. Cease hasn't lost any zip. Cease is kind of like he's I don't know, he's like the hipster version of Hunter Green, where the fastball and slider is so damn good. He plays in such a great park, but when they're on, it's ridiculous. But we saw those times in the Mets last year when he loses the zone with that fastball, then he just starts trying to fill up the zone with sliders. Like, what are you going to do about that? Like, you're just going to start sitting slider and dominating him. And his command is so bad that it happens a lot. Where King, like I just mentioned, he has so many weapons. He's got the changeup, he's got the sinker, he's got the sweeper, he's got the fastball. He does so many different things. He can put all those pitches in the zone or throw all those pitches for whiffs. Like, you get into the box against Michael King, it's very uncomfortable at bat, whether you're on the right side or the left side of the plate. And if he's cheaper than Dylan Cease, that's something you pounce on, especially when, like you said, the Padres want near Major League ready young players. Like something like Drew Gilbert, Mauricio. Like, is that far away? Like, maybe we're overrating those guys. I mean, Gilbert, I think, has fallen down a peg, and I think that's known in the industry, and Mauricio's hurt, but like, that's probably a point where a phone call's answered.
Yeah, the only thing that would make it weird with Mauricio being that they just have like a million
all the
middle
infielders
infielders signed for a million years, so maybe not Mauricio, but like maybe it's a Gilbert, maybe it's a pitcher. I'm not going to say Brandon Sprode, obviously, because that'd be way too much, but like, no,
I don't think it's a pitcher. Do you know who actually is the one who actually gets the steal done? It's over, but I don't know if I'm okay with it.
Who?
It's Jet Williams.
Ooh,
because you want or is Luis Angel Acuna, because they want someone that can play shortstop. They're not comfortable with Tatis there anymore. They don't want Bogarts there anymore.
They're gonna rock Bogarts. I think they are comfortable with him at shortstop.
I think the plan is to do it this year, but I don't think that's what they want to do in perpetuity. 33-year-old Xander Bogarts there, and because another part of these
for the next 10 years, I don't think they have a choice.
Well, I think he's going to place a lot of second base. Because another part of this deal is that they would love to get out of either the 1 year for $14 million they owe Luis Arias, or the 7 more years on Jake Cronenworth's contract.
Yeah.
Like they have signed some horrible deals. And again, Arias is just 1 year, $14 million, but there's a world where you can take back one of those guys and you can lower the cost of this. You know what I'm saying?
Cronenworth is signed through 2030. What the fuck?
Isn't like they signed him to a ridiculous deal when he had a few good seasons. I think Cronenworth also he's a good ball
nice player, yeah, but he'll be.
I like Jake Cronenworth objectively.
He'll be 37 when he hits free agency. How did they sign that contract? What?
He's going to retire when that happens. But like someone like this is some Mets fans are going to this is going to be one of those scream at me in the car radio things. Like if you can take back Luis Arias in this deal, you can probably lessen the cost of Michael King to pay a Luis Arias $14 million for 1 year. And the memes would be amazing. The takes that would swing back and forth in the Mets community, from you especially. But the 1 year deal for Luis Arias to come along with Michael King, another former Yankee into the rotation, it would be blissful. But I just don't know because I just don't think Drew Gilbert has to shine right now as like a premier corner outfield prospect, which the Padres actually do need very badly. So then it becomes shortstop. That's the other thing they need, allegedly. So I wonder if the Mets would actually be willing to part ways with one of the higher end prospects, either Jet or Acuna, probably a step behind. But Acuna gets pushed a step ahead because he's supposed to contribute to the Major League team this year.
I'll also say this. We know AJ Preller is obsessed with twitchy players, obsessed. So it might not necessarily take one of the top names. Maybe it's some guys a little bit lower that are like ridiculously twitchy. I don't know who those guys
That's
are. I have no
Mauricio.
idea. Yeah, maybe it is the Mauricio fit then. And I think for a Mets team that is pretty crowded right now, you got to pull the trigger on that. Getting Michael King on this team would change a lot of things just for this team in general.
I'll say something crazy too. Like if the Mets were to trade, like just in our fantasy world, in our world of hypotheticals, Ryne Mauricio to the Padres, like he'd probably might just be their starting left fielder on opening day.
There's a good
like
chance.
AJ Preller would be like, pick up the glove, get out there and shag flies. Like you're too good not to be able to do this really well. But that's probably how it lines up. Again, still an awkward fit. The way the top of the Mets farm system looks right now doesn't lend themselves super well to trades like this. And it just doesn't fit David Stearns to go after a 1-year rental like Michael King like this. Like that's what's kind of stopping me too. Plus also you have every chance to resign the guy. And again, that's a move that super elevates this team. And there's plenty of you can get back a first baseman pretty easily in that deal if you really want to help yourself with the cost. I don't know. There's ways to pull this off. And I think it's really interesting to think about this one because I think Michael King is that level of pitcher where he can take over a team, he can take over a series. He's that good. He really is.
Yeah, I mean, context for everybody at home before we wrap this up. Michael King last year, 170 innings, 2.95 ERA, a whip at 1.19. He finished 7th in the Cy Young voting. He was simply one of the best pitchers in the National League. And that's also while pitching in one of the toughest divisions in the National League in terms of offense, where you got the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, and even the Giants last year hit the ball a little better.
And his ERA was over 5 on May 1st last year, and his walks per 9 were also over 5. And he gave up 10 home runs his first 36 innings. And he pitched so well the rest of the year that's what happened. He was ridiculous. But I also would love the twinge of irony for Juan Soto and Michael King to be on the same team long term. That would be awesome. That'd be really fun to watch. But like we're getting to that point in the offseason now where like it's hard to figure out what's real and what's fake. But I'd love to talk through it all still.
Yeah, 100%. And if there's anything new that comes up, James will fire up the camera out in Thailand, and we will get you guys an episode. We're pushing back the Lance Brozdowski one to next week as of right now, just because we have a ton of stuff that happened this week, and we want to keep it topical. And Lance, the pitching stuff, lives forever. It's evergreen. So keep an eye out for that next week, unless there's some more big news. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the Mets'd podcast on YouTube, listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. And follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
And I'm Giraffe Nick Mark with a C. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We will catch you all on the next episode. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Let's go Mets.